We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
We no longer live in a world of nations and ideologies, Mr. Beale. The world is a business, Mr. Beale.
Go on without me. Just go.
A good soldier never leaves a man behind.
Because I wouldn't give you 2 cents for all your fancy rules if behind them they didn't have a little bit of plain, ordinary, everyday kindness.
Life, finds a way.
Welcome to Silver Screen Biases. Each week we pick a movie off of IMDb's top 250 and dig into it. We're examining truth claims in critically acclaimed movies while also examining our own biases. I'm Nelson.
This is Jeff.
And this week,
Bicycle Thieves.
This episode is brought to you by our community on Patreon. They make this show happen, and you can help. Links to our Patreon and merchandise are in the show notes. Now back to the show.
Do you know how to ride a bike, Nelson?
This probably is a false memory, but I'm pretty sure that the person that taught me to ride my bike was neither of my parents. My dad was away on a work trip. He took several very long work trips. He had to put food on the table, right? And that's what was available for him. But I think it was a neighbor that taught me to ride my bike. I'm nearly 100% sure that it was a neighbor that took the training wheels off my bike.
Do Canadians ride bikes differently?
Yeah, upside down usually, or backwards, like Dudley do, right?
Checks out. I know how to ride a bike now, but I did not learn in my childhood age.
Oh, really?
Didn't grow up with sidewalks or even a paved driveway. So like when things came in and out of our lives, it was never bikes because we never really needed them. Like where we grew up, like we didn't have a place to use them, nor did we use them when we traveled. So it wasn't until I worked at a camp when I was a sophomore in high school, I had access to a bike, and I was like, I'm going to learn how to ride a bike this summer. So
do you remember it being a difficult thing?
I remember, so I was there for 6 to 7 weeks, and I remember it not taking the whole summer. Because like for most of the summer, most of my memories are me riding the bike, not me trying to.
How many weeks do you think it took you to be confident on a bike?
Probably 2 to 3.
Okay.
That's interesting. Yeah, and I don't ride much since. Honestly.
Middle school and the first 2 years of high school, I was on my bike constantly. Where I
grew up in a city type area or like sidewalk?
I grew up in a suburban community. It was really like 3 suburban communities mashed together.
They call those triburbs,
and all around like this hill, like this one center hill that kind of divided them. And there was trails all through there. Teenagers went out there to do drugs and drink and have sex, but also really great bicycle
Where's this
trails.
hill at?
This would be Rothsay and Quispamsis, New Brunswick. And me and my buddies, we'd get on our bikes and like that was our. I remember several times, especially through the school year or like late in the school year, school would let out and my parents wouldn't see me until Sunday evening. Like from Friday school lets out, they don't see me till Sunday evening. And as a parent, like that's got to be something that's like a little bit terrifying. But I wasn't even getting into trouble back then, so I didn't start getting into trouble until I moved to the States and didn't have access. Like biking didn't exist around here. I remember.
Yeah, I don't think it was invented in Ohio till.
I remember
20.
The first time I asked somebody if they want to go riding bikes, and their joke was they said to me, "Hey, that reminds me of a joke I heard once." I was like, "Oh yeah?" And they're like, "How do you recognize somebody with ADHD?" And like as I'm saying, I don't know how. He's like, "Hey, you want to go ride bikes?" I was like, "Oh, got me."
I see way more kids on scooters in our area than I do bikes.
Yeah,
at least at the park area.
Well, we have like that little skate park spot.
I've not been to the skate park, but I've been like the actual park where the playground stuff is. Like, a lot of kids ride up on their scooters.
We've got
scooters have been redeemed.
We've got
good job.
So it's really flat around here, which makes it difficult to do interesting bike stuff. And then anywhere
like tricks.
Well, not even just that. Like I remember as a kid, we just bike all through these paths and stuff through the woods, and they weren't like it was mountain biking, but it was non-challenging, right? It was like accessible. That's what I grew up with.
Yeah. If this movie was made modern day, it would definitely be Scooter Thieves.
Scoots.
Scooter Thieves.
Yeah.
Because
so let's start talking about this movie.
Bicycle Thieves, 1948.
Just after World War II.
Which one? The second one.
Mm-hmm.
The second one.
Yeah. They had the Great War, and they're like, we'll never have to have a war again. And then one guy was particularly disappointed with the results of the Great War and was like, how about we do another one?
Yeah.
And this time, we'll win.
I constantly
wrong.
I constantly go back and forth on how I react to a specific meme. So I've seen it on shirts and stuff, like the shirts that say like America, back-to-back World War champions.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I'll laugh. I'll be like, that's clever. And other times I'm like, ugh. Like, I don't know, like depending on the day. Like it doesn't always hit with me.
Yeah.
But just some days I love war, some days not so much.
You know the difference between a war and a police action?
Nikki Haley?
No. It's how conclusively did we win? Vietnam, conclusive that we did not win. So it's not a war, it was a police action. It's also the difference between like wars and battles. Like during the Revolutionary War, there was the Battle of 1612, where Canadians came down and burnt down the White House. Not a war. Battle. That was actually after the Revolutionary War, I should say.
It was 1812.
What did I say?
You said 1612.
For sure it was like 1412.
That's when Columbus sailed the ocean. I don't know. Anyways, this movie runs at an hour and 29 minutes.
Doesn't feel like it, though.
No, and I don't know this for all the films we've watched, but this one specifically, you can currently watch this on YouTube with ads for free right now. So if anyone out there wants to watch this, YouTube with ads right now. I don't know if those rotate out, but right now.
Also in the show notes, a link to where you can purchase to watch it on Amazon. Mm-hmm. That is, at this time, not through our Amazon affiliate because Amazon decided they didn't want to do business with us. So
send us money when you purchase the film off of Amazon to
offset that. Or, just join our Patreon. Yeah. That's the best way you can support
this movie is not rated, so they didn't. Too bad. And directed by Vittorio De Sica. Mm-hmm. Vittorio De Sica.
Can we talk about him for a bit?
Yeah.
So this is his only IMDb Top 250.
And this was his debut film as
Not true. So he's had 2 movies in the Top 250. This one and another one called Umberto D. He's got lots of directing and acting credits, but nothing that I really recognized. This was his second. His first one was called... I'm pulling it up now. Shoe Shine was kind of like his biggest known first thing, won an Academy Award. But Red Roses was his first, which he co-directed in 1940. He also did Madalena, Zero for Conduct, a handful of others. But this was a movie that he couldn't get funding for. But I want to talk a little bit about him as a person. His personal life, because those biases do influence the types of movies that we make. So listen to this here, Jeffrey. It reminded me a little bit of when we did Metropolis. You're reading? I'm gonna wait.
No, listen. I got a fact confused now. I get all paranoid. Yeah, it definitely was not his director debut. And I looked at this roster.
You're thinking of the actors. Almost all the actors were entirely new actors.
Yeah, I knew that. Okay, anyways, continue. Sorry. Yeah,
that's fine.
Definitely not his debut.
So, remember when we did Metropolis? The author and screenwriter, she was part of the Nazi propaganda machine.
Yes.
Okay, so now we're just after World War II, because that was leading up to it. This is just after it. Specifically, we're in Italy. And Italy, they were the leading minds in fascism, which they considered to be a response to communism, but not so much an opposition to communism as like a communism is a great idea, but it shouldn't be global. We're just going to keep it just within our country of Rome. Okay, so Vittorio De Sica. His passion for gambling was well known, and because of it, he often lost large sums of money and accepted work that might not otherwise have interested him. He never kept his gambling a secret from anyone. In fact, he projected it onto characters in his own movies. Excuse me. In 1937, Vittorio De Sica married the actress Guidita Resone.
Nailed it.
Who gave birth to their daughter, Emilia. in 1942 on the set of Un Garibaldino al Convento.
It's like I'm there.
He met Spanish actress Maria Mercader, cousin of Ramon Mercader. Is that name familiar to you? I'd be surprised if it was.
The Ramones.
Ramon Mercader was the man that killed Leon Trotsky. Leon Trotsky, the close friend, confidant, and right-hand man of Vladimir Lenin.
Vladimir Lenin, yeah.
So Maria Mercader and him started a relationship. After divorcing Rossoni in France in 1954, he married Mercader in 1959 in Mexico, which is where Ramon Mercader killed Trotsky. But this union was not considered valid under Italian law. In 1968, he obtained French citizenship and married Mercader in Paris. Meanwhile, he had already had 2 sons with her, Manuel, a musician, and Christian, who followed his father's path as an actor and director. He was a Roman Catholic and a communist. Although divorced, De Sica never parted from his first family. He led a double family life, with double celebrations on holidays. It is said at Christmas and on New Year's Eve, he used to put back the clocks by 2 hours in Mercader's house, so that he could make a toast at midnight with both families. His first wife agreed to keep up the facade of a marriage so as not to leave her daughter without a father. So, Roman Catholic and a communist marries the cousin of Trotsky's assassin. Now, I'm not all too familiar with Trotsky, and I thought, is this going to be like a family tension? He's a communist, married the cousin of Trotsky's assassin. So I clicked through to learn a bit more. Ramon Mercader was a Spanish communist and NKVD secret agent who assassinated the revolutionary Leon Trotsky in Mexico City in August 1940. Mercader was imprisoned for 19 years and 8 months in Mexico for murdering the exiled Trotsky with an ice axe. In 1960, after release from Mexican imprisonment, Mercader was awarded the Hero of the Soviet Union Medal and the Order of Lenin Medal, and lived at different times in Cuba, the Soviet Union, and Czechoslovakia. So that led me down a bit of a Wikipedia click. Old Trotsky, close friend, confidant, fellow revolutionary, right-hand man to Vladimir Lenin. When Lenin died, who took over? Not Trotsky, Joseph Stalin. And Joseph Stalin and Vladimir Lenin, Joseph Stalin and Trotsky, their disagreement was that Trotsky believed that, like Marx had written, we need a continuous revolution until it's global. And Stalin said, no, we're just going to keep this, we're going to keep it within our borders and show that it's so good that other people just adopt it. That's putting it as politely as possible. He had more political power than Trotsky did, and so he had Trotsky exiled and declared an enemy of the people. So yeah.
You think he was just Stalin? Like buying time?
Who, Trotsky?
Snicker,
all right. So yeah, I thought that was a bit of interesting history there.
So what you're saying is this movie was the cause of the World War II? I'm just kidding. No, that is fascinating.
If World War II didn't happen, this movie wouldn't have happened.
That's true, yeah. Well, yeah, and this story would have been completely different too.
Right.
Yeah.
But the communist leanings of the director are all over this movie.
Mm-hmm. This movie came out in 1948. When did World War II end?
Some say it never ended.
Who do you know? Who do you know, Nelson? Who do you know?
I say. You're going to have to let me look that up because that's a history detail that I don't know off the top of my head. I think 46?
No, you're thinking of the Civil War.
1945. September 1939 to September 1945.
All right. We've done no movies in either 1947 or 1949. So I jumped 2 more years on each end, 1 more year on each end. Mm-hmm. 1946 was It's a Wonderful Life and the Best Years of Our Lives.
Yeah. And this, in a way, is kind of like an Italian Best Years of Our Lives.
Yeah. And then in 1950 was Rashomon, which we just did. So yeah. Now, to kind of go back to exactly what you were just saying immediately before the dates here, is this movie based on a book?
Yes.
And when was this book written?
Oh, that I don't know. So it's based off of Luigi Bartoloni's book of the
There he is.
Luigi.
Luigi.
Luigi Bartoloni's book of the same name. I don't know when it was written. Let me see if I can find that.
There's probably no way of knowing.
1946.
Okay.
So a year after the war.
Okay. Because I was just curious if the book was. I had saw that it was based on a book, but I was curious how much of the war affected the book versus the war affecting the film.
Yeah.
But it seems like, do you know if they're parallel or if they're drastically different, or like if the book was just an idea, like is the book by the same name and stuff? Bicycle
Book's
Thieves?
the exact same name.
Okay.
Book's also titled Bicycle Thieves. I could not find enough information on the book to know.
Okay. In here, this is sort of a cop out for me, but I did not recognize any cast members. So for notable cast, I tried to do some bunny trails. Like this may be the only Italian. This may be the only Italian film on the top 250.
It is not.
It's
but
not?
There's not many.
Okay. I did not see any crossover with actors in any other films that I recognized. Do you have any acting, casting details? And we hinted at it before, like most of the cast in this movie was also unknown before this movie. Did any of them go to do on to anything else that you know of, or is there any casting details?
So first of all, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, Life is Beautiful, Cinema Paradiso, Once Upon a Time in the West, Once Upon a Time in America, Bicycle Thieves, For a Few Dollars More, and The Battle of Algiers. Those are all current top 250 Italian movies. Now, many of those,
Some of those sound
many of those are westerns,
westerns,
and that's because of what's called the spaghetti western. Italy was the film location for a lot of western movies, and Italian directors were directing them.
spaghetti.
But to answer your question, in the character of Antonio Ricci, we have Lamberto Maggiorani.
That's Dad, right?
That's Dad. He shows up as an extra in Umberto D, the other movie that was in the top 250 by the same director. But no, nobody in this went on to have acting careers.
Okay.
And it's kind of tragic, and I'd like to read about it a little bit here.
I'll let you read about it. You can do that now.
Okay. Lamberto Maggiorani.
Man, you're on it today.
Spaghetti. Wahoo! That's Italian.
Did you ever watch Tim and Eric Awesome Show? Great job.
I've tried it. It's not really
There's
for me.
the one Tim Heidecker.
Yep.
There's a character where he hides behind a tree, but one of his lines is spaghetti, and that's not the funny part of the sketch, but like that's what's memed. It's just him popping out going spaghetti, like, and so that's as much Italian as I know. Carry on.
So Lamberto was a factory worker. He worked as a turner and a non-professional actor at the time he was cast in this film. The director specifically went out of his way to get all non-actors to do the roles. He earned 600,000 lire, which is about $1,000 for his performance, enabling him to buy new furniture and treat his family to a small vacation. But when he returned to the factory, he was laid off because business was slackening, and management felt it would be fair to terminate him instead of other impoverished coworkers, since he was perceived to have made millions as a movie star.
It's ironic, isn't it?
He found occasional work as a bricklayer, but continued to try to get roles in movies with little success. Even De Sica, the director of Bicycle Thieves, was reluctant to employ him as anything other than an extra. Pier Paolo Pasolini gave him a bit part in the film Mamma Roma due to his iconic status in Italian cinema. Cesare Zavattini, the screenwriter for Bicycle Thieves, aware of Maggiorani's predicament, wrote a screenplay about him titled Tu Maggiorani in an attempt to demonstrate the limits of neorealist film's capacity to change the world. He died in 1983, without ever regaining his success as a film actor.
It doesn't look likely he'll get it now.
Yeah.
Time's almost up for him.
When I read this, it really embittered me towards the director. The director was the son of a banker who became a stage and film actor director and a communist. And it's remarkable how often communists are born to wealthy people. There's a lot to be unpacked there. But then he goes on to make this film about the plight of the working man, which he doesn't really know. So he hires all workingmen to do it, and in the process ruins the lives of several of them because they can't get work now.
The movie's not what ruined their jobs, though. Like he had a job in Hollywood.
Not Hollywood.
Okay. Rome Wood. Romy Wood. That's not going to land well. But like, it's not uncommon for directors to go on and do other things and not use cast again. Like
true. Like, but this particular director, in his later movies, he always would get people that were untrained actors.
And we don't know if this guy was difficult to work with.
No, but I think he did an excellent job.
Yeah, that's besides the point. Many actors do, and I don't know the guy. Do a great job, but like they can be butt heads outside of the film. So we don't. I think there's more to the story. Like we can't assume that the director intentionally ruined this guy's life.
I don't think he intentionally did it. What I'm saying is,
but also the well-being on this guy was not on the director's back. No, no,
that's not what I'm saying either. Let me try to frame what it is I am trying to communicate here. Oftentimes, communists and socialists are children of wealthy people who then say, I'm going to make the world a better place, but they actually don't know what they're doing and make situations worse for groups of people or individuals. In this particular case, he made one person's life much worse by using him as a tool to demonstrate the plight of the working man. I'm not saying that the director has a responsibility to all of his cast members' futures and blah, 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 blah. I am saying that Luigi's life would be a different life. Not Luigi, sorry.
Mario.
Wario. Bowser's life would be a different life had it not been for this director.
Yeah.
And there's an irony in the fact that they come along and they're like, I'm going to tell this story that's really going to change things. And all that it changes is the circumstances of one guy who now can't find work. The child was also played by a low-income, never acted before. He was spotted watching production of the movie from his father's fruit stand, and they hired him.
You may know him now as Antonio Banderas.
You may know him now as Enzo Scioli, who became a mathematics teacher. He did some acting, but he did a handful of acting. The last thing he did was in 1977. But nothing that I recognized.
Definitely a little ironic, but 8.3 out of 10 on the IMDb.
Mm-hmm.
As we record, it stands at 124 out of the top 250.
Mm-hmm.
Does this movie have history on the top 250?
Yeah, it first debuted August 1999. Now, as we've discussed before, the top 250 started in 96. And so I went to August 1st, 1999 thinking, there's a lot of older movies that show up for the first time here. And I think that's kind of interesting. But it mostly held its place. It's held around 100.
It's never dropped off since then?
No, the lowest it's been was like 150.
Okay. Rotten Tomatoes, 99% on the tomato meter. 94% audience. Does this movie have a budget?
$133,000.
That's dollars?
Dollars.
Okay.
Which would be 1.7 million today. Despite the success of his previous film, Shoemaker or Shoeshine or whatever I had said earlier, he couldn't get any budget from big studios. And so this was self-funded with gifts and donations from friends.
And didn't have to pay the cast much.
They didn't pay the cast much because they used all unexperienced cast, and everything was shot on site. Nothing's in a studio.
It was all on location in Rome.
So that also helps with the budget.
The one thing I was fanning through IMDb, just the facts and stuff, and the one thing that stood out to me, and this is minimal, but I just Studio Ghibli director Isao Takahata cited Bicycle Thieves as an influence. So then I went to Isao's page, and I did not recognize. And granted, they're not all Ghiblis, so I didn't know which ones were which. But
many of them were Ghiblis.
Yeah, but I couldn't. I would love to have known which, if it was specifically a Studio Ghibli film that was inspired by this, or used as or was it just one of his films outside of Ghibli's collection that he worked. So I couldn't figure out any more laser in if this movie actually did focus on a Ghibli movie, but it's none of the Ghibli movies that I recognize. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting. I was yeah. So I mean, this movie has made a name for itself, and There was another fact that said, what director was it? It was Akira Kurosawa. Ira
Kia Sweet and Sour.
Yeah. But however, the fact said it was stated humorously, that it was cited as one of his top favorite films of all time. But I don't know how you can cite that after someone's passed away.
Yeah, because you can't rebut it.
Right. So like I chuckled at that. I was like, I'm not going to write this down because like I don't take it as credited, but I did say it nonetheless.
Apparently, many Iranian new wave film directors cite this movie as being very influential for them. Martin Scorsese listed it among 39 of his like top foreign films. When I read the Iranian new wave thing, that made me think of a movie that I think is somewhat similar to this.
Peter Pan.
Children of Heaven, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I looked it up. That movie is considered to be part of Iranian new wave, but it's the second wave
iteration
of the new wave. And I think there are a lot of parallels between this movie and Children of Heaven.
I was going to make that connection too. Yeah. Let's talk small talk here real quick before we get into some gears and shifts, here. Bike pun. Wasn't great though. Was not a great pun.
Let's shift gears.
Yeah, that's how
let's put on the disc brakes real quick.
Yeah. Let's ring some bell. No. Anyways, what was your thoughts? Was this your first time seeing this film? Had you heard about it before? What was your experience with this film?
I had previously read the synopsis because I had never heard of it. And I was looking forward to watching this. I don't think I've watched many Italian films.
Does Luca count? The Pixar movie?
I've not seen Luca.
You've not seen Luca?
So I thought, I was looking forward to watching this. And then when I did my background research and I found out that the guy's communist, I'm like, this is just going to be propaganda. And it wasn't even 5 minutes in before I'd seen enough propaganda that I already hated the movie. Now, I like the movie. I think it's beautifully shot, incredibly well acted.
I don't think it was blatantly
but there was enough.
If you were looking for it. As someone like me, like I wasn't looking for it. Some of the videos I watched afterwards made those connections as well. Not specifically some of the names you attached, but just talked about some of his political views and stuff. Like those were things that I did not pick up watching this. I was just watching a poor guy trying to make ends meet for his family.
Sure.
And like I missed some of those nuances. But if you were looking for him, now that we've had these conversations, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see. It's clearer now.
Because when I watch movies, I look for what kind of claims does this movie make about economics and political governance and that kind of stuff. I'm confident I would have picked up all the stuff regardless. But because I had already read it, I was like primed to know, okay, this is definitely going to be in there. Let's see how much there is here. Not even 2 minutes into the movie, we get a guy saying, and because I'm a bricklayer, I should die of hunger. The bias here is that because I'm a bricklayer, the only labor that I should ever have to do is bricklaying. And that I'm entitled to work in the field that I want to work in. That's not true. You are free to pursue whatever kind of labor you want to do. And if someone's willing to pay you for that, then you can have a working relationship there. But there's a lot of people that do things as passion projects, or they knowingly earn less because they want to do the thing that they're passionate about. And then there's people that are like, hey, I don't love this, but it pays the bills. And all of that is legitimate. Now, particularly in post-World War II Italy, which was still a fascist country economically, there are government barriers to that. And this movie does talk about them.
In Italian.
Yeah.
That was worth noting.
So in that opening, I think it's first of all telling, the hero of the movie, he's in line to get a job.
I wouldn't call him a hero, but continue.
Oh, the main character.
The main character, absolutely. Yeah. You want him to win.
Yes.
You're wanting him to succeed. Like he's not.
Yes, but
he's not. Yeah,
But he is. He is our protagonist, even if he's not a hero. He's our protagonist.
Yes, we're rooting for him,
right?
Even though his father's skills are terrible.
At the very beginning of the movie, his name is being called from the employment office to tell him he's got work, and somebody has to run to find him because he's laying in the sun. And if this isn't like the perfect like encapsulation of communists, like the guy's basically like, I need work to feed my family, but I'll go lay in the sun instead of be in line at the employment office. He gets called, hey, Richie, you'll hang posters. And he says, posters, go to the employment office. They'll give you a work permit. The amount of bureaucracy there.
Just to work.
Like, that's why you have so many unemployed people.
Yeah.
You have to have a work permit. And then...
do you know if that was a post-World War II thing? Or was that
no, this is a fascism thing.
Okay.
So fascism saw itself as like the way that it was going to be of the people before the people is that instead of direct democracy or representative republics, every laborer, every citizen is going to be part of a union. And those unions work directly with the government. So if you're a bricklayer, you're part of the bricklayer union, and the bricklayer union has its own representation in government, and the government makes sure that the bricklayer union gets the things that it's asking for. You know how I feel about unions. So go to the employment office, they'll give you a work permit. There's layers of bureaucracy here. He needs
that did exist before World War II.
Yeah. Okay. And during and after.
Okay, because with this being directly post World War II, I didn't know how much of this was legitimately affected by the war, or if this is stuff that their lifestyles continued to go on the same way, but means changed. I didn't know what changed with the war.
Much of the economic condition is a result of the war.
Okay, economy's down, but the structure of government and the structure of
largely the same
is all the same. Okay, continue.
The reason the economy is down, of course, is because they're taking all the money from the people to fund the war.
Yeah.
So Richie needs I don't remember his first name. I think it's Antonio, but
Antonio
Richie needs a bike for his job. There's 24 or so other men there, also need work, have working bikes.
Not laying in the sun.
But they can't have the job that Richie's just been offered because they're bricklayers, and that's a different category of labor.
Makes sense.
And we see pretty early on, Richie doesn't know how to hang posters. He has to be taught.
Yeah.
That bothered me so much. Mm-hmm. And this, I don't contribute to the director's worldview. He's just showing this is how messed up our government is right now.
Right.
Now,
the feelings you were feeling was probably what he was going for.
Probably. And it's unclear to me how much the director is like, none of this works, or this is just the way it is. Right? Like,
it's just the way it is.
When I look at this, I'm looking at this as like here's a snapshot of how none of this works. I don't know what the director's impression was. But later, they're in that underground communist meeting. And what are they complaining about in the meeting? That the government isn't interfering enough. So what I think the communist director is trying to tell us through the underground communist party is not just that none of this is working. It's that the reason it's not working is because the government's not doing enough. Which is what we usually hear socialists and communists say when, like they look at FDR and the New Deal, and they say that the reason we had the Great Recession wasn't because FDR meddled in the economy too much. It's because he didn't meddle in the economy enough. So
there's still a chance.
I had like my anti-communist, pro-capitalist hairs were on end. For what this movie
from the very beginning of the movie,
yeah, for the politics in this movie and the worldview claims about like economics and politics, I hated this movie. Now, direction, acting, beauty, story, loved.
Yeah,
but man,
I feel that. I appreciate your ability to see that next layer of what's being told, because like I picked up on the nonsensical concept of them going with him who's lounging versus the guys that are willing to work and like are there in them. Like I picked up on that, but like to go that next layer of going like, oh, the bricklaying thing. Like I didn't catch that.
Yeah,
I didn't catch that.
And then like feeding into my biases just a little bit more, something that the director and I actually agree on, but the director's solution is totally counter to mine. He goes and reports his bike stolen, and he says, "So you'll look for it?" And the policeman says, "Look for it for yourself." It's like, "I gave you the description and the license plate." And the guy's like, "Yeah, that's going to take me and teams of guys days to find. If you find it in a pawn shop, great. You've got a police report. You won't have to pay for it. You can just, file the claim." But I don't really know what you expect from us here. This is what happens when you have a monopoly, right? Like, they have no incentive to do the job better. It's not like they make or lose money based on how many crimes they resolve. Now, the communist looks at this and says, we need more government in our policing.
Yeah, the police are at fault in this moment.
Yeah. Or they say, like more modern communists say, defund the police. I don't know what their solution is to these crimes, but they say defund the police. Some communists today will say that bicycle is personal property. Everybody's entitled to have a bicycle. It's personal property, not private property, because private property is the means of production. However, he needs the bicycle to earn a profit, which makes it private property now, because now it's the means of production for him. And so then everybody's entitled to it. Communists are very unspecific on the difference between personal and private. But I agree with them, like, the police aren't doing their jobs, right? Their job is to protect life and property, and here they're doing neither of that. However, also feeding into my biases, we then have the church providing more philanthropic care than the state has been, right? The state's like, hey, I have a job for you, Richie, specifically. If you have a bicycle, all you other guys with bikes, sorry, you're bricklayers. Oh, your bike was stolen, find it yourself. Like, no real help from the government. And then the church is like, hey, we're going to feed you, we're going to shave you, we're going to give you a haircut. What other things do you need? Well, I'm because I know enough of these church type programs. They're giving them clothes, they're helping them find jobs, they're helping them find places to stay. Philanthropy always works better than government programs for charity. This movie just had me so irritated, Jeff. So irritated.
I wanted him to succeed, but there was multiple moments in this film where I'm going, you moron.
Yeah.
Specifically with how he fathered his son.
Yeah.
And just the lack of.
Do you think
he got hit? He almost got hit by a car twice.
Yeah.
He thought that it was his son that was drowning when it wasn't, but he didn't know the well-being of his son. So
he didn't know where his own son was.
Right. So just like, and that he's out finding a job and he thinks it's the best thing for him to do is bring his son while he's trying to take care of, those, none of those choices would be the choices I'd make. And I don't like.
How much of that do you think is because he's a bad father or because he's Italian? Like, how much of it could just be
that I can't answer. I don't know.
I think a significant portion of this might just be Italian cultural values. Like, hey, we've had a bad day. Let's go get some lunch and get drunk. That might just be.
But like, son, come with me. I got to go find a job. Like,
no, it wasn't go find a job. It was come with me. We need to find the bicycle.
That's true. Well, he had the bike to keep his job.
Technically, the kid had a job.
Yeah. Kid's better than his deadbeat dad. I just say that those moments like kind of irked me. I was like, dude, you're running here. The dude is stuck in traffic. He almost gets hit by a car twice, and you're still facing the opposite direction. Mm-hmm. Like, I stopped liking him at that point. Like, his priorities shifted from getting something to provide for his family first to getting something. Because family became second in his goal to get something to provide for his family. I
want to cut him a bit of a break here because
let me have it.
All right. So first of all, he says to his son, to eat like them, you need to earn $1 million a month, right? And he's talking $1 million lira, which today works out to be about $30,000 a month. I don't think that they were. Sheesh. I don't think they were eating so fabulously that you'd need that much. But post World War II Italy, maybe. Then they break down the math on the napkin of if he can find his bike, this is what he's going to earn, potentially. $12,000 a month plus $2,000 of overtime. And then $800 daily family bonus, which works out to $24,000. Nice. So he's making double from family bonus than his actual salary.
That sounds nice.
Works out to $38,000 lira a month, which is about $89 or $1,000 monthly today. Do you think that you could live on $1,000 a month?
No.
And they sell their bed sheets. They sell 6 used bed sheets for 7,500 lira, which is $225 today.
And some nice bed sheets. I haven't spent that much on bed sheets.
I mean, things get weird in a closed economy as far as like pricing on things, valuable day-to-day products, the price on those tend to skyrocket because they're so regulated. So I can't say for certain if the director was really aware of the prices. And this is just what post-World War II Italy looked like.
I imagine he had to have been aware. I mean, he's from the area, right? Like, you assume that he's also living and creating a lifestyle for himself, like, and buying things and stuff. So, like, he's got to be somewhat aware of prices of things. This movie was made in the time it was set in. So, like,
sure.
Like,
but so
he has to at least be aware. If like, he may be embellishing or changing things to make things look a different way, but he's definitely got to be aware of the real prices of things.
I don't think that's necessarily true. We see a lot with where politicians, journalists trying to show that you are out of touch with the common man will say, how much is a box of cereal? How much is a loaf of bread? Right? You see that. And we haven't seen that in a while because all of our political candidates are so fabulously wealthy that we know. One of my favorite jokes on this, though, is Arrested Development, where the mother says, how much could a banana cost? $8? Right? So, like, given this director's background, I don't take it as a given that he is aware of what these things cost. Mm. However, it's entirely possible that these prices are accurate. But I mean, like, if bed sheets are going to be, $225 for 6 bed sheets, $1,000 a month isn't enough to live on.
Yeah. No, not at all. Pasta's cheap, though.
Pasta is cheap. It's true.
We grew up eating a lot of pasta because it was cheap. Pasta and a jar of sauce, man. You could eat for days on that stuff.
Yeah. Carbohydrates are less expensive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sure. And for people feeling the pinch, chicken and eggs are a great source of protein.
I'll tell you what.
At an affordable price.
I knew I was eating good when our pasta had meatballs on it. Like that, like being legit. I love my parents. Yeah. Childhood was great. Like, I'm happy for everything. Like, this isn't like a.
And they had a big family to feed.
Like, there was 5 of us children. Like
kids eat so much.
We had spaghetti every Wednesday, and I looked forward to it. I'd come home from school, have spaghetti, and then go to church every Wednesday. Like, it was my routine. I loved it.
Yeah.
But there'd be some Wednesdays we'd have meatballs, and I'm like, oh yeah. I'm rich. Like, it was a great day. It was a great day.
Well, to go back again to what we were talking about, this is the difference between, this is $1,000 a month. This is between zero money and $1,000 a month. That's what this bicycle life presents to him. That's huge. Now, I'll also say, as fathers, there's been times where you and I both have had to make choices that aren't the ideal father choice to provide for our families. I mentioned earlier, my dad would take very long business trips, right? They were like, and when I say long, like, I think he went to Russia for like multiple months.
Russia.
For a business trip, because that's what his work required of him. And so, like, I'm sympathetic to the father becoming like singularly focused.
Yeah.
There's other things here
that wasn't my issue, but it was just the fact that, like, someone's life came on the line.
Yeah.
Like, he was going to lose more than what he was chasing after.
Yeah.
And that's to me, that's where it got a little topsy-turvy.
He lost his son's respect.
Which I get what they were portraying. Like that moment with the child in the cars, which I keep going back, like it was intentional for the movie, and I get what it was setting up. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm just like, we went to the park today. Mm-hmm. Not once did I take my eyes off of Jazz. Even if there was 2 squirrels chasing a little nut on a tree, and I was very interested in it. I've not, in my 2 years of parenting, I've not taken my eyes off my childhood.
Some of this is also generational. Jim Gaffigan's got this joke. He says, I've got more pictures of my kids than my father ever looked at me.
That's fair, yeah. He's great. Jim Gaffigan's wonderful.
And also...
Fan of the show, by the way. Probably one day. Could be.
As we saw earlier in the movie, there's a different level of expectation on kids in this time.
Yeah.
This kid's got a job where he works at 7 p.m.
Kids' lives changed during the war.
Yeah.
Parents were off fighting. Well, kids had to step up. So, kids were already... Lifestyle was different for them, and this was just a couple years after.
Yeah.
So I didn't think about that.
I wasn't sure what years he reigned. Benito Mussolini was in office till July 1943. And he was succeeded by Pietro Badoglio.
Man,
who was in office of 44. I want to know who was in office at the time of this movie. 1 second.
While you're looking that up, I really enjoyed. This is probably the first time I've watched.
What year was this movie?
48.
Okay, so in office at the time was Ivano Bonomi.
I love the Italian language. I haven't spent much time with it, never been across the sea. But like watching this movie, I watched it subbed. And
he was a fascist, by the way. The prime minister at the time was a fascist.
I think it's a beautiful language.
I don't know if this is true. This might be apocryphal.
No, it is a beautiful language. I promise you, it's truthful.
I don't know if this is true. It might be apocryphal. The emperor, or perhaps he was king at the time,
Cusco,
of Italy, at one point had hired a group of linguists count how many languages are in Italy, and there was a couple hundred. And he's like, okay, we're going to make the language of Italy to help with our national identity. Italy has a very nationalist history and still is quite nationalist. Mm. He's like, we're gonna do a national language. So go through all the languages and find the prettiest word for each word.
Makes sense.
And there's only one region of Italy that never adopted the Italian language. That's Sicily. They're not Italians, they're Sicilians, and they'll tell you as much. Yeah. And they speak Sicilian. It's very close to Italian.
That's fun.
Now, I don't know if that might entirely be apocryphal. That's what I'd been told.
That's fun. I have always been attracted to Italy. Like, I've always wanted to go there.
Because you're a feet guy, and Italy's a boot?
Well, I am a feet guy. I never picked up on the boot reference. Oh, man, I gotta go. But no, I just, like, it's beautiful. Yeah, no, I think that was my biggest takeaway from this film was just like, yeah, a little taste of Italy. You know, I was at CC's Pizza, you know? Because it's Italian. CC's Italian. Why are you laughing?
Yeah, nothing more Italian than mac and cheese pizza.
I mean, you can either have Olive Garden or CC's, man.
If those are my options, I'm never eating Italian.
Yeah, but yeah, I was most taken away by. Now, it wasn't the most scenic film, but just for me, it was the authenticity of the setting. Like, it was all on location. Like, it was like you were just seeing the normal day in and day out working families. Italy,
yeah,
Rome specifically,
yeah,
and I really enjoyed that. Like, I not my favorite movie overall.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it better than Kingdom of Heaven.
Yeah,
for sure. Like, Kingdom of Heaven had color in it, and I'd still like this one better.
Children
of Heaven.
Kingdom of Heaven also.
That's a completely different movie. Yeah,
There's another aspect in this.
What you got?
Of government intervention that irritated me, and it's just like a passing line. When he's talking to the police officer, he says, "I've given you the description. You have the license plate." They had to get license plates for their bicycles, Jeff.
Yeah.
I looked it up. It was true. Italy had license, and not just Italy, a lot of countries. Mm-hmm. Today, there's like 4 countries that have bicycle license plates, and they're only for e-bikes or motorized
Correct.
bicycles.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. This is an interesting question. Like, with your opinions on government regulation,
sure.
Do you think cars should have license plates?
So, let's presume, let's presume,
I've never really thought about the implications of this. Like, what's your thoughts?
Let's presume my ideal society where there is no government,
mm-hmm.
and Capistan, we like to call it, and all the roads are privately owned. And let's say A1 Roads says, hey, if you're going to drive on our roads, we'd like to know that you are a competent driver. These are the 5 driving rating companies that we work with, or insurance companies. And so if you want to drive on our roads, you have to have rating from at least one of them, or we charge a premium. Or they might be like, hey, you can't drive on our roads unless you're insured. And then the insurance company says, hey, you got to...
There's no government. There'd be no requirement to have insurance.
No, but the road owner has the right to do business with whoever they want.
Correct.
And they might say, to make sure you're reputable, you need to have insurance. And the insurance company might say, we'll insure you without getting certified as a good driver, but it's going to cost you extra. There's market reasons to have all this in place that doesn't require authoritarianism. So that's my not so short answer of what my ideal would be. Now, since the government owns the roads, the government has the right to say who can operate on the roads. I don't think that's the most efficient way to organize society, but I think that there's reason to it.
What about age regulation?
I don't see any reason why kids shouldn't be able to get driver's license.
What do you define kids?
Like my kids, if they can demonstrate that they can drive a vehicle, I don't see any reason why they can't get a driver's license.
Can they see over the steering wheel?
Probably not, and that's why they wouldn't be able to drive a vehicle, Jeff.
Hey, and I love your kids. Like,
I think anybody
it's not a criticism on your kids, but I wouldn't want my daughter to be driving anytime soon.
But let's presume that there was no law with an age minimum. Okay, do you think that your daughter could drive competently enough now to get a driver's license?
No.
So what's the problem?
She'd end up finding a way.
Life,
a girl's determined.
Finds a way.
Finds a way. Yeah.
Fair.
Oh, yeah, it's interesting.
So I don't think there should. I also don't think that there should be like a drinking age or a smoking age. Like
the drinking age, we've got the highest drinking age for most countries, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got. I do.
And do you know why it is the way it is?
I don't. Hold that thought. Because I want to know. But like, opinions aside about military, I find it stupid that kids can enlist their lives in military and literally give their lives away, but they can't drink a beverage.
Yep. Well,
they can't be mature enough to drink a beverage on their own maturity
legally,
but they can sign their life away to die. I think everything should be 18, or everything should be at the same level when it comes to what's a legal adult, what's not.
Yeah.
If you're a legal adult, you've got everything. Drinking, driving, military, all that stuff should be at the same age.
Sure.
Again, my opinion on those are different, but just having different ages for different things.
Another one you left out
what
there.
Did I miss?
Before you're legally allowed to choose for yourself if you're going to have a tattoo.
Okay, 18.
You can sign up for debt that will take your entire life to pay off.
Credit card?
College tuition.
College tuition. Oh, that's right. Yeah, 18 as well.
17. There are 17-year-olds signing up for that.
Parents don't have to co-sign for 17?
I don't know.
Okay. It wouldn't surprise me if they don't.
But who's being sold to more, the child or the parent?
Right.
That's
well.
The college recruiter. Who are they spending more money to target?
The student.
Yeah.
Because my parents took the brunt of my 1 year of college.
It's very generous of them.
It's not their fault. I should have planned better.
I don't think most people should go to college. I think that
I don't regret going. I just regret that it cost so much and I wasn't able to finish. I wanted to learn what I was pursuing.
I'm not saying that college is a net negative. My position is that the majority of people that go to college aren't working in their fields. The college experience, quote unquote, has very little to do with education quality. I think without government subsidies, the whole structure would look a lot different. Actually, that reminds me. So the reason that it's 21 across the U.S.
Yes. Yes.
Technically, in America, states have the right to choose for themselves what their drinking age is going to be.
Really?
Yeah. And for a long time, drinking age in different states was different.
I did not know. Like we're talking 90s, 80s?
Yep. Not too long ago.
Not too long ago. Okay, I did not know this.
What changed was that there's a federal subsidy that
is the same with weed? Because wasn't the states can decide their own rules about weed, but if federally it's still illegal?
No.
Okay, this is completely different.
Different.
Okay, keep going.
There's it has to do, I think it's roads. If you want federal subsidies on your Department of Transportation in your state, you have to have a drinking age of 21 or higher.
Interesting. Do you know if
and where does that money come from, Jeff? Where does
lottery tickets?
Where does federal tax money come from?
I feel like there's a funny answer there, but taxpayers.
Hilarious.
Okay, let's talk science. Is there a scientific reason that it's 21 for drinking? I've heard this, I've heard from multiple different places. I don't have any of them cited, but that our brains achieve peak growth. They achieve that the tip of the mountain growing at around 25, give or take.
Okay.
And again, I don't know the science on that, but I've heard from multiple different places that it's about at 25 when our bodies start to go that's our peak. When physicality and mentally. That's what I've heard.
Yeah. Let's assume it's true.
Correct. Because I could be wrong, and that'd be cool if I was.
Sure.
I'm curious if why 21. I wonder if 21 has something to do with the physiological side of things.
If it did, wouldn't it be 25?
You would think.
And
But
also, if it did,
curious,
if it did,
why
wouldn't there
21?
be a dramatic difference between the education results in America and countries with lower drinking ages? And yet, on a lot of education,
Let's cut all that.
a lot of those metrics, we perform worse.
No,
So if there is a correlation, we need our kids drinking earlier.
Happy hours. No, I never drank before I turned 21.
Okay,
We're just talking about alcohol. We're talking about Italy.
we're drinking beer
We're
right
drinking,
now.
Yeah, like how much do I want to share? I saw in my life reasons why drinking at a young age is horrible.
Okay,
Very close to me. Very close to me. At the same time, my father drank beer in the evening. Never abused it. Never overcompensated, or overconsumed. And there was even times where he had his own kind of sort of rules. He wouldn't drink the night before he went to work. He wouldn't drink on a work night.
Mm-hmm.
He worked at a factory. He wasn't a pilot or anything. He was allowed to drink on a work night. He chose not to. He only drank on the weekends, and it was one or two. And my mom, honestly, that's probably where I get my lightweight from, which I'm grateful I'm a lightweight. I don't like over consuming. But if he drank, my mom would drive home. Even if it was just one beer, he was just these are the so I grew up with that. The respect, the admiration, the enjoyment of it, and never over consuming.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas also while I was a child, I saw a family member of mine underage drinking, arrested, juvie, or I'm not sure exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And so for me, it was very clear. I was right and wrong. Okay, cool. I'm not allowed, it's not never drink, it's drink responsibly. And it's
all right, Budweiser.
It was never an age thing for me. For me, it was just okay, I can wait to drink because it's not worth it to break a law or whatever exists. It's not worth it for me to. So I was able, now I tried some stuff with my parents when I was growing up. I had wine at a wedding one time, just a sip. And I tried one of my dad's beers. Just a sip in front of them both times. And my parents' motto was at least for me, it was
when in Rome.
It was I'd rather them try it with us than not when they're not with us, and I'd want them to be more comfortable with to ask questions, to be curious with their parents than it to be with friends who are also maybe even more immature than my parents. I've never had an issue with alcohol. Nor have I ever had I've had a tentative relationship with like a taboo relationship with it at sometimes. But I think if I were to have drank at 18, I don't think I would have been any different if I waited till I was 21. It's I think it's possible to be mature about it at a younger age, but then again, I can't speak for everyone. Lindsay, my wife, you've met her.
I've heard of her.
She's currently reading Britney Spears's biography, but from her perspective, she thinks there's been a lot of edits. She's anyways, that's a whole other thing. But Britney Spears in her book talked about drinking at ages 10 and 11. I mean, she was a child of Hollywood. She was a child of Disney and stuff so she had means very early on, and she would talk about on a sunny afternoon, she'd have a margarita with her parents, in 10, 11 years old. That's not great either. I feel there should be a line where it's yes, but I do think it falls more on maturity in reverence for something that could have a negative effect. I think drugs and alcohol and sex, and baseball, they're all in the same category. I think they all need to be used respectfully, specifically baseball. Sorry, that's my 2 cents on alcohol.
Yeah. Let's see. I did drink underage. I never was a binge drinker, but I had been drunk a couple times underage, but I don't care for the feeling, and so it was I've had too much, right? And I stopped drinking. Drink some water. First time drinking underage, I was maybe 18. Actually it goes way back because I drank gin, which for a long time, the only way I could describe it was licorice water. I drank a glass of water that was sitting out that tasted like licorice that I hated when I was 8 or 9, maybe. I had tasted my dad's beer and his wine. Knew I didn't like wine. I thought beer was fine, but didn't get the allure.
Really?
I'm a big beer fan now.
Right, but like even as a child, like the bitterness didn't turn you off right away.
No.
That's fascinating.
And then when I was doing disaster relief, the organization I worked for had a no alcohol on site rule, but no rules against us if we were of legal age drinking elsewhere. And I was living in Honduras. And I remember coming back to visit the U.S., going to the local bar with my buddy, with Connor, actually. And
shout out to Connor.
Several time guest Connor. And we went to the local bar, and he ordered whatever he orders. And I ordered beer. And the bartender just like, yeah, sure. And she brings the beer, and Connor's looking at me like, I do not have the guts that you have. I was 19. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, dude, you just ordered a beer confidently. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm not supposed to drink this here. Like I had just forgotten, right? It wasn't like a confidence thing. It was like I ordered
a different
beers.
setting.
I drink pretty regularly. I don't think I have any kind of problem with alcohol. Several times where I've been like, all right, I'm taking a month off because I feel like I've been drinking too much. But I think I have a relatively responsible relationship with alcohol. My dad, for the longest time, told us that the first time he drank was in college. And then one time he let it slip that the first time he had gin, he was 12.
Oof. What is with you, family, and gin?
And so I said to him, I had that card in my back pocket, and I pulled it out. I was like, Dad, I thought you said. He had to sheepishly acknowledge, okay, I started drinking when I was 12. My dad's favorite drink is gin.
Gin's delicious.
And I'm all right with gin. All of my kids, when they were infants, there's that age where like if you are eating it or drinking it, they have to have a taste. And I always let them. Sophia, my daughter, her first not formula meal was beer and pizza. All of my kids have sipped my drinks. Sophia, when she was an infant, once took a gulp of scotch. And she cried for like an hour. and
she doesn't like Scotland at all.
And she won't taste if she knows there's alcohol in it, she'll smell it and be like, no thanks. Patrick and Floyd, like, I can't leave a drink unattended. Floyd has polished off almost a full beer before. I can't leave a drink unattended with those boys.
Episode?
But I've never seen, yeah, we can.
Okay.
But I've never seen them like I'll have beers in the fridge and they're not going to help themselves.
I recently read the biography. Well, I guess the biography of the business Budweiser, because it talked about a couple different generations, and it talked about how like
talk about Kinder Beer.
No, what's the dude's name?
John Budweiser.
Can't think of his name. The dude, the Budweiser guy. The first sip out of when the babies were born in the family of the Budweiser, the first thing that touched their mouths was a Budweiser beer.
Interesting.
As like, we're talking fresh out of the birth canal, body matter on them. He's like, yeah, that's what all the kids and grandkids did, was their first thing that touched their lip was Budweiser. I'm just like, whoa. So, like, I'm not a fan of that.
Alcohol isn't as bad for kids as, let me word this correctly. If you're pregnant, one of the greatest things to help your milk come in, your breast milk come in, is beer. That doesn't mean drink heavily, right? It's just like a little bit's good. In fact, as we see in the Bible, drink a little wine for your stomach's sake. That's what Paul says to Timothy. In Germany, they have this stuff called Kinder Beer, which literally means beer for kids. It's a low alcohol proof. Alcohol is not as detrimental to development as we in America treat it. This is not to say that binge drinking at any age is good, right? But like a 5-year-old having a small glass of wine with dinner, which is common in France.
It'd be fascinating to see.
It's common in France. Like, the kid's going to develop just fine, right? It's not like he's drinking a bottle of wine.
Mom, this cabaret is great, but the SpongeBob episode was lovely. Like just the juxtaposition of like drinking a sophisticated drink and talking about like kids' cartoons.
Well, also a meal in France is like a 2-hour affair.
That's also true. Yeah.
So
yeah, and they steal bikes and
Italy. That's Italy. But yeah,
Anyways.
so alcohol for kids, not as detrimental as we as Americans tend to treat it.
Is that the name of the episode? Alcohol for kids.
But also, that's not to say like kids should be drinking whiskey, right? There's a difference.
It's interesting. So what we landed on, just to recap that little rant, prohibition wins. We should bring back prohibition.
Yeah. We need more
regulation.
More regulation, more government interference in markets. That's the net takeaway from this.
That's just to recap before we move on. Yeah.
Communism good.
Stalin is ballin'.
Yeah. There's a story about Joseph Stalin, possibly apocryphal, that he was being interviewed, and the interviewer was, I think, from Britain, and he said to him, "You're a man known for being ruthless with the people in your country, and yet they love you. Why is that?" And Stalin called for a chicken to be brought from him, and he plucked the chicken alive and set it on the floor. And the chicken cowered at his legs, and he fed it some breadcrumbs. And he said that if the people fear you, they will love you.
That's not love.
No, but that is communism.
You're describing marriage, but that's not love.
Let's get into wrap up.
Okay, you got nothing else?
I got nothing else.
Man. Yeah, no, I didn't have much. There was a couple things.
I already vomited up everything I had to say.
No, I
got out of the way early on.
I got one more thing here before we wrap up. Just a concept like this guy, Antonio Ricci. Got his bike stolen.
Yeah.
By Bicycle Thieves.
Oh.
But
speaking of name drop in the movie, I think there was.
Yeah. By the end of the movie, he was either contemplating or acting upon the idea of doing what was done to him for survival, stealing food, acting out of legal or moral law,
right,
for survival.
Yeah.
And it kind of just brought up this circle of to bring it back to the beginning of the film, I wonder if the guys that stole his bike at the beginning were doing it to sell the bike for money to feed their family. That
tabs back to Rashomon from a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. It's kind of cool. We didn't intentionally do these movies back to back, but.
Well, let me ask you.
This idea of
what does Scripture say about it?
Well, we talked about it in Rashomon, and
did we?
Yeah, you brought up the Scripture. I can't quote the verse, but you talked about how if you're gonna steal, be prepared to pay for the consequences if you get caught.
Right.
I don't know what you specifically referenced the verse.
I think it was talking specifically about stealing grain from a field or stealing bread to feed your family.
Don't steal, but if you do, steal.
If you do steal and you're caught, you pay back seven times.
It's just it'd be one thing if I was by myself, a single guy, got my bike stolen. I need to make means. I'm gonna go Aladdin on some of these places and steal some apples off. Maybe, I don't know. If I've got a wife and child, there's way more to risk when choosing to go outside of the law for survival. They got to eat for a day, but now you're in jail for months.
Mm-hmm.
Did you really win? Is the family better off because they got a meal, but now they're without you for even longer?
Well,
not working. It's
even on top of that, pawning is because he pawned the bicycle, and she said you shouldn't have pawned it. And he's like, "Well, you ate that day, didn't you?"
You and I as Christians believe moral law is not just moral, but it's biblical. It's foundation. Okay, for you and I, our moral law is biblical,
right?
Not just moral law
in fact, if it's not biblical, it's not moral.
Correct.
In our view.
Correct. So for us, we live by a biblical law first and foremost. I don't know, would you choose to follow moral law so that your family would survive? Or would you not to follow moral law and your family die off? What would you do? Again, I'm not saying this will ever happen to us, but it's one thing to break a law. Okay, you're speeding. We've talked about this analogy before. You're speeding.
Yeah.
But you're speeding to get to the hospital because someone in your car is hemorrhaging.
Yeah. Or
I will gladly
having a sale.
Right. I will gladly break a speeding law to save someone's life.
Right. Or to get it done.
But like, where does that fall biblically? Is breaking a legal law, a government law, where does that fall biblically? Like, and is there a biblical law that we're like that you would ever like?
I think that it falls to civil disobedience, as we see with theft in the Old Testament in Leviticus, which is don't steal. It's acceptable to steal to feed your family, but if you get caught, you still face the punishment.
You have to own up for it. Yeah.
That's right. And the punishment, I believe, I don't know for certain, was the same as the punishment if you were stealing for ignoble reasons. So I would say civil disobedience. I think there's plenty of times where it is not just acceptable, but virtuous to break the law. And I think we can all quickly think of examples of where if the law is not moral, then the right thing to do is break the law. But you accept the punishment that comes with it. I think that that's also the right thing to do there. And that shines light on how unrighteous the law is. Now, specifically, like if you can't feed your family, what do you do?
Was there government programs back then, or maybe not? Was there other assistances back then, not just government, but like that he could have relied on more, or like was this job the end all be all for their family? Like, could he have done other stuff by trying to chase after a dang bike to provide for his family?
I think
there other ways he could have provided for his family than just this one thing we saw play out?
I think he was right to chase after the bike. I think he was wrong to bring his son to do it.
Okay.
And if he couldn't have recovered the bike, the church was obviously providing the charitable needs he would have needed for his base needs. There's a thing called time preference. We've discussed it briefly before, but time preference basically comes down to how much is your time worth to you? If you have very low time preference, you're somebody that's not willing to wait. You want immediate results. If you have high time preference, you're willing to wait, long-term investments, that kind of thing. I might have gotten that backwards, but I'm pretty sure that's right.
You look good saying it, though.
Thank you. Yeah. So pawning is an example of low time preference. I need the money now.
Immediacy.
And I might not get the thing later.
But you're not getting the full value of whatever you're even...
Right.
Yeah.
So we already know that this guy has low time preference because he's desperate, right? We've heard, you've probably heard, I know I've heard it several times, that like very, very low income countries, they tend to have kind of survival mindsets where I need to provide for today. I'm not thinking ahead.
Right. They're in a 24-hour mindset.
That's right. And that is very, very, very low time preference. And this guy's desperate, and desperate times create desperate people. We also talked about with Children of Heaven that there's kind of a ladder of mobility that allows you access to different work. So first it's shoes, then bicycles, then motorcycles, then car, then multiple cars, then plane. And this guy, he's on foot, but he's like this bike is just out of his reach, really. So he's on the cusp of being able to expand his time preference. The more money he has, the longer time preference he can afford to have. The higher time preference he can afford to have. As short time preference as pawn is, theft is even more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So he's a desperate man making desperate decisions.
Yeah.
I consider him to be a tragic figure.
It's definitely sad. Like you definitely want him. I mean, like, I don't want to see anyone impoverished. Like, so
anyone?
Anyone. I don't see anyone impoverished.
There are certain people
you would like to see impoverished.
Yes. It's a very short list.
Why you keep pointing at me?
I said it's very short list. Basically, just one person.
But just tragic. Yes, I don't think he was a hero by any means. But what he was the representation of. This movie was focused on one guy. But what he represented was probably a lot of the people in Italy at this time.
All working class people in Italy.
Yeah.
And the reason that that's their target is the director's political ideology.
Yeah. So, and before we wrap up, I just want to say this episode is sponsored by Communist by Carrie, where Carrie is your communist confidant. So go to her website, Communist Carrie Confident. Sorry, trying to make a bad ad. Anyways, yeah, no, I agree. Like you could now that after our conversation, it's easier to see. But yeah, wrap up questions.
Hold on one second. So I was talking with our friend of the show, Brad, about this movie while I was watching it.
Bad Brad.
And I was expressing to him my frustration. And he said...
Brad's a communist, by the way. Yeah.
And this was shortly after I talked about sorry, you can't do this work, you're a bricklayer. He says, imagine not being able to just like do a thing because of some bullshit regulation. Can you even imagine? Thankfully, we're in America and there's no regulations here. And that's one of my frustrations when I hear people talk about like America's capitalist and like late stage capitalism. It's like we're so far from capitalism. We have so much government intervention in our markets. Yeah. And that's all I wanted to say on that. We can now get to wrap up questions.
Thanks, Brad. Would you recommend this film?
I would not. In fact, if somebody told me I'm going to watch Bicycle Thieves, I would say don't. And I think that's one of the first times, maybe Alien and Aliens. But I still gave this like 3 stars because I think it's a beautiful movie, beautifully acted, but the opinions of the director are so transparent in this movie, in my opinion. And the problems of fascism are laid bare, and the solutions that the movie suggests are more of the problem. I wouldn't recommend it.
I would not as well. Of the foreign films we've done, I think it ranks the highest.
Really?
Well, not like, I guess, not including the animated Studio Ghibli films.
Okay, yeah.
But
you give this more than Metropolis?
Yes.
I like this a lot more. I like Metropolis a whole lot more.
So it's above Passion of Joan of Arc, above Metropolis, above Children of Heaven. Actually, those 3 I just mentioned are all next to each other. Children of Heaven, Metropolis, Passion of Joan of Arc.
Clockwork Orange?
I guess that is an international film. That's at the bottom. That's at the very bottom. That's number 66 on my list. Then you've got Das Boot, which is still below this. Then I've got this movie just right above Rashomon.
Okay.
So it's definitely at the bottom. But so no, I wouldn't recommend it. Did I appreciate it? Yeah, it was fun. Like again, I love the language. I love listening to the Italian language. I think it was fun to see the setting. I thought Antonio, the guy who played Antonio Ricci, was a real looker. Real attractive man, I think. He was easy on the eyes. So there was that. He had that going for him. But
yeah.
Would you change the rating? Not rating. It's not rated currently.
PG's fine for this.
PG's fine. Yeah. There's no violence, no sex, no English language.
There was intimidation, but not violent.
Correct. Yeah, PG. Yeah. So yes, I would change the rating to PG. Has it aged well? 1948.
I think it's aged just fine.
It plays really nice. It watches nice.
The bureaucracy in this movie, since this movie, like starting decades later, there's been a lot of satirization of this level of bureaucracy. Like in the movie Brazil, which would be a great
Where did that take place?
Brazil.
Okay, cool.
Which would be a great off 250 for us. It's an absurdist satire of a heavily bureaucratic government. Some of the stuff in this, because it's not satire, because it's just this is the way it was, it makes me really angry. It makes me really frustrated. But I think it's an interesting time capsule of this is what Italy was like for the working class after World War II. And I think in that regard, it's held up. I think also it doesn't feel dated as far as quality goes.
Right. No, it looks. It's a nice film.
Yeah.
I like the age of it. And I like watching a piece that takes place around the same time it was produced and published and released. Like the whole thing is it's a moment in time, and I like that.
Yeah.
Whether or not you agree with everything that's the choices are made, I like the feel of the movie, not necessarily the decisions. Yeah. Would this be in your top 250?
No,
me neither.
Well, I mean, it might shake out that it actually is because I think I gave it 3 out of 5 stars.
Okay.
But like, if I were to list 250 movies off the top of my head, I doubt this is going to make the list.
Yeah. Why do you think this is on the top 250? While you're thinking, I got my answer. I don't get it. Like, I appreciated it. Like, I don't get the renown for this film.
Yeah.
Same with Children of Heaven. Like, again, it had a message. More Children of Heaven had more of a positive message than this one did. Now that I've got your commie perspective,
I'm not a commie.
What? Oh, this changes things. No, nothing about this movie was mind blowing. Like maybe for the time, but I can't speak for someone that was around in the 40s. So for me, I don't think this movie has and maybe I'm wrong, and I probably am. I can't see how this movie could have such an impact on modern films as the people that lifted it up back in the day. I don't think the weight of this film has stood the test of time.
I think
so. I don't know why it's still on the top 250.
I
don't see the weight of it.
I think it's beautifully shot, wonderfully acted, and I think
especially for non-experienced actors.
Yes, and I think a major contributing aspect here is that I think the types of people who create cinema, and I don't mean just like movies, right? But cinema. I think the type of people that appreciate and create cinema tend to be more left in their politics. And I think this movie speaks to their politics a lot.
Even back in the 50s and 60s?
Definitely in the 50s and 60s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, is it a fun film? Yeah, it's interesting. And I think it's, if you're someone who's doing a deep dive in film, yeah, it makes sense why it's on there, especially on the international side of the film. For modern day, there's nothing in this film that had me flabbergasted or just man, that was innovative. Rashomon, for me, I felt more this one was more entertaining to watch just as far as entertainment value. That's why I put it just right above Rashomon.
Yeah.
But as far as cinematic and directing and from a artistic perspective, I thought Rashomon was better at that.
Now, both of us said that we wouldn't recommend it. In fact, we would recommend people not watch it. Or I said that.
I wouldn't say don't watch it. I'd just be
if somebody told you,
it's a neutral film.
If somebody told you they were going to watch this and you were going to give a different recommendation, you say, "Hey, that's an interesting movie, but I think you should watch this instead or after." What would you recommend? For me, I'd say, Bicycle Thieves is nice. I think Children of Heaven does it better. I think watch that instead. I know how you feel about Children of Heaven. I thought it was phenomenal.
It's not. I mean, this movie isn't really a rags to riches movie. It's a rags to rags story. It's a rags to a couple more rags story.
It's rags to near financial stability to rags.
Yeah,
I think I'd recommend either Children of Heaven, or if they're I just want something about the end of World War II. I'd be all right, then watch
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. No, what's the one? I loved it so much. I can't think of the name of it right now. Came out the same year as It's a Wonderful Life. We talked about it this episode.
Oh, The Best Years of Our Lives.
Best Years of Our Lives.
Yeah, I would absolutely. I thought that movie was. Where did I rank that one?
So yeah, if somebody was told me, "Hey, I'm going to watch Bicycle Thieves," I heard you heard it. You've seen it.
Oh yeah, I ranked that significantly higher than this.
Yeah, I would say, watch Children of Heaven or Best Years of Our Lives instead of,
or Schindler's List. No, I can appreciate it for what it was, but as far as in 2024, I can't see this film having an impact like other films do on other. Again, I'm not a filmmaker though, so I don't see stuff through that eyes. I'm okay to be wrong. It's not like I don't see it, and that's just me. So,
all right. Anything else?
That's all I got, man. This was fun. I'm glad I watched it. I'll probably never watch this again.
Yeah, I can't see myself watching it again.
Yeah. You should watch Luca, though. Completely unconnected to anything storyline-wise, but Italy and animated and Pixar.
Yeah, but I think I've had enough Italian. But we watched...
next week we're doing Italian Job. No, I
watched Ferrari in theater.
Was that good?
I quite liked it. Although
I love Adam Driver. I want to see.
I'm not going to give away spoilers, but there was a part of the movie where I couldn't watch. I went and saw it with Connor.
You told me this already. That's right. We've already talked about this. That's right.
I went and saw it with Connor, and there's a part of the movie that's quite graphic of injury, not violence, but a graphic injury.
Yeah.
I couldn't watch.
Did you ever see House of Gucci?
No.
Adam Driver is a wonderful actor, and I thought he did a great job in that movie as well.
Yeah.
So I have not seen Ferrari yet. We were talking on the way here about movies that trying to catch up on the movies of 2023 and stuff.
Yeah.
I've not seen Ferrari yet, but House of Gucci was great. I recommend that one.
Something else. The Oscars just happened, and
they did. John Cena showing it all.
If next year our audience would like to see our live reaction to the Oscars
and the Golden Globes,
let us know. That's something we're considering doing. We would do a live recording right after. You can watch our in real time reaction.
Instagram or YouTube, we'll figure it out.
So if that's something that interests you, give us some feedback. We'd love to hear.
We also talked about, as we're on the subject, we also talked about doing, this was something I thought about after watching the State of the Union. Would you be interested in like off the cuff commentary on things going on in our world, in our United States of America? Like, I think Nelson and I to date would be hard because we're both married. But besides that, we've not watched a single movie together yet. We've not viewed a movie together. We've viewed them separately.
And not for the podcast. Like we've never
seen a movie together. No, we saw Oppenheimer together.
I closed my eyes the entire time.
Which we're coming. A year's not too far.
That's true.
Oppenheimer was the big movie of 2023. Anyways, we've never viewed something together and then talked about it immediately after. I said immediately weird. But just so stuff like the State of the Union or anytime, like I think it'd be fun, like to do like an Instagram live, after something like that happens, or maybe after the election results in November. Like, let's just talk. Let's just get some of you guys. If you guys follow us on Instagram, like you guys can jump on and we can continue the conversation. We can interact with you in real time. So it's something we want to do more of. We've never done. But yeah, we'd love to do that with you guys. So let us know in your comments. But we're planning on doing some of those in the next 12 months.
And Jeff, what are we doing next week?
Ratatouille.
2007
Pixar Ratatouille.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I like that movie. It's been a while since I've seen it. I didn't
ask.
Oh.
So, well, our good friend Sam Gonzalez is going to be on with us next week.
Yes, I've met him a couple times. So it's really your good friend.
Yeah, no, him and I are pretty tight. I like him. He has hair.
He certainly does. And I look forward to finding out what his religious and political biases are.
I guess that's fine. We can ask him that.
All right, next week, Ratatouille.
Au revoir, because of France. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did.
If you found value in what we discussed today, please consider leaving us a rating and review. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode.
If you have any feedback or suggestions, we would love to hear from you.
That's right. Tell us why we're wrong.
If you want even more content and ways to engage with us and each other, check out our Patreon page.
By supporting us there, you'll get access to exclusive bonus content and help us continue to create high-quality episodes, as well as help pay for our future plans. Links to our social media, merchandise, and Patreon are in the show notes.